company behind plans for a high-speed rail line through the region this week produced details of the environmental impact of its planned route. HS2 itself admits almost 1,000 jobs are under threat at firms in the way of the new line. And the Woodland Trust says twice as many woodland areas as had previously been thought could be lost. Meanwhile, in the town of Long Eaton, a giant viaduct will be 2 metres higher than expected. And this is what people there made of that news.
So you're going to lose jobs, you're going to lose houses, you're going to lose shops, you're going to lose everything. It's going to cut Long Eaton in half.
Yeah, well, I don't agree to it coming through Long Eaton anyway. I've got a friend who's going to lose a house that she's been in for nearly 30 years.
What is the benefit to the destruction of everybody else when there's so many other demands on the public purse?
Well, HS2 is now holding months of public consultation on these plans. And Andrew BRIDGEN, I imagine that you might have some observations to make on this. You're totally opposed to HS2, aren't you?
I have, and when I said in the House of Commons in 2013, when it was first broached, that this project is going to cost over £100 billion and go over budget, the Secretary of State then laughed at me. I think he was quite right to do that, because I think it's going to be over £200 billion if this project goes ahead. I think we're going to see an announcement very shortly that's another £8 billion over budget, another overrun, and also that phase one, the construction, is going to be pushed back by at least a year. That's going to add to the project again. We've already had the hybrid bill for phase 2B pushed back for another year. North West Leicestershire, we're taking all of the pain, we're getting none of the gain. We've had the blight for 5 years. Now's the time to can the project while our losses will be £5 billion, not the 250 billion.
Well, let's talk about some of the potential gains here. Toby Perkins, part of the plans involve a station at Chesterfield. You fought hard, didn't you, to represent your area to get that. It might be good for your area, but what about the people that are in Long Eaton, for example, who say that their town will be torn in two by this?
Well, I mean, I don't know enough about Long Eaton, but clearly I do recognise that HS2 goes to a lot of areas that don't benefit much from it. I think every mile of the journey I go from London to Chesterfield that I do every week, I move further from wealth towards poverty. And the truth is that the closer we are to London, the better it is for our economy locally. And so reducing that gap is incredibly important.
So you're still behind it?
Absolutely behind it. I think it'd be great for Chesterfield. But I also think that in terms of our trains, we've seen this this summer, how under pressure they are. We've seen the appalling increase in fares. We've seen the failure of our trains, and we need greater capacity.
It's completely wrong. The faster people and goods can get to London, the more it's going to suck the lifeblood out of the regions. Nowhere can compete with London economically, socially, or culturally. It's a black hole that sucks in resources. The faster you can get there.
I agree on that point, but to kind of make the point of actually environmental issues here, it's going to affect wildlife greatly. Bats will be potentially endangered in certain areas. Owls will be affected. 19 ancient woodlands will be destroyed in the making of this.
Half a dozen of those are in the East Midlands.
Yes, it's really quite tragic and very frightening. And also the building of it will increase traffic around the East Midlands, but particularly, of course, Nottingham and Towton. It will cause air pollution or increase of air pollution, and actually the report stated that themselves. They admitted that it will go over the legal limit.
Toby Perkins, is it important that we take those concerns into account, particularly the environmental issues that Kat's just outlined?
Well, absolutely, we need to take those into account. But, you know, we've got a growing population. The need for transport by train, you know, the alternative to that is we're on the roads, which is even worse environmentally. We need to be able to move people about by trains.
Why not improve the existing railway and opening up old railway?
What about super fast broadband? That would mean people wouldn't have to travel. Like a video conference.
Yes.
Not enough in North West Leicestershire, I can assure you.
We've got these technological developments already, and it isn't stopping people meeting up.
And
what you're seeing, what you're seeing is that we've had super fast broadband, we've had video conferencing available for years. People are still needing to make those journeys. In fact, the number of people using the rail has gone up dramatically. So actually improving the rail network prevents people being on the roads, it prevents more traffic by air, and actually ultimately will be environmentally friendly.
But it doesn't stop anywhere.
And isn't regeneration important here as well? Though?
Well, it is.
Despite what you're saying about the environmental impact as may be, 74,000 jobs could be created.
Yes, so only for the production of this. Jobs will be lost in the long run and will be sucked into London. And I think we need to actually help local economies to grow themselves south rather than bringing everything back to London. And coming back to the traffic issue, we have railways. I'm not saying we should use cars instead, but let's think about Nottingham, and Nottingham would be actually relatively benefiting from Totem Station. But at the moment, you can use a train. It takes about 2 hours, sometimes under 2 hours, to London from Nottingham. Now, if you're in Nottingham, when you're in Nottingham, you would have to go to Totem, which will take, and with the traffic, it can take up to an hour. So you're actually not really benefiting time-wise. And already, and that's Nottingham who will benefit the most.
Is this actually going to go ahead, Andrew Bridgen?
I don't think so. I think it'll be scrapped within 6 months. I've spoken to numerous cabinet ministers. I struggle to find anyone who actually supports HS2. It's deeply unpopular.
One sitting right next to you here.
Yeah,
not
he's not in the cabinet,
but,
thank goodness,
yes.
at the moment.
No, but Chris Grayling is, and I think it is legitimate to say we have the worst Transport Secretary in history, and the only thing that gives me pause for concern is that Chris Grayling thinks it's a good idea. If this government was taking transport seriously, they'd have sacked Grayling and got someone in who actually knows what they're doing.
I think we'll scrap the budget for HS2.
Scrap the Secretary, not the budget.
We'll split then the original budget of about £50 billion, £25 billion for the Midlands, East-West communications, £25 billion for the North, and that'll be far more popular and far more effective.